Is your vision for your life bigger than your challenges? So this morning I was on a group call with my coach, with my business coach, and this came up. This came up because one of the participants was speaking about where she was in her life and how just the weight of what she had in front of her as far as obstacles and potential roadblocks seemed to feel bigger than what her vision was. So my coach on the call made this statement, and the statement was what I started with is your vision bigger than your challenges? And I love that. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was brilliant because that is definitely something that when we're on a path to not only just our sole purpose, but on a path in life where we're in a situation where we're not happy with where we're at, and we feel that there's just no way out. Like, I don't know how I can get out of this situation. Like, how can I find in this means to the end job that I'm in, or means to the end career that I'm in, how do I find my way clear? How do I find my energy? How do I find the time and the space for me to do what I love? And so in asking this question, is your vision bigger than the challenges that you have in front of you? That's huge, because if our challenges are bigger than our vision, then our challenges are going to be the outweighing factor in how our life plays out. And so one of the ways to help transform this relationship to challenges versus vision that we want to have for our life, or how we want to experience our life, is that we need to make our vision bigger than our challenges. So how do we do that? Well, the first way we can do that is by writing out a vision statement, or actually writing out a vision story for our lives. Like, what do we want the vision of our life to be? What do we want it to look like? And more importantly than anything, what do we want it to feel like? Because how something feels, the essence of how something feels, will determine the whole manifestation process in which something will unfold. So one of the things I always share with my client when I'm working with them is that, what do you want it to feel like? Maybe you don't quite know what it is that you want to have happen when it comes to the physical aspect of, a vision of your life, but you know what it wants to feel like. You know how you want it to feel. And the other thing is, if you do have a vision, like I said a minute ago, what does that feel like? Because how things actually come into form is that we have to be in alignment with the feeling in our body. Because if we just keep it in our head, then we're keeping it out of reach, believe it or not. We are keeping it out of reach. We can't just know it. We have to feel it. So I know situations of people where they are in a place in their life where they've had something that they've always wanted to do. They've had this drive inside of them. They've had this passion inside of them, and they can't quite seem to figure out a way to make that come into fruition because there's so many obstacles in the way. I don't have the finances. I don't have the time. I don't have the right contacts. I have no idea how this is going to happen. And those are all real things. But what we have to commit to is just that, making a commitment to take some form of action toward what it is that we want. And the other thing is being willing to let go all that we need to in order to create what it is that we want in our life. And I think that's kind of one of the bigger things for most people, is that people want something, but they struggle with actually making the choice to say yes to what it is that they desire. They may be saying yes in their mind, but if we're not saying yes with the choices that we're actually making, with the actions that we're taking, then actually we're really not saying yes. I get an opportunity to speak to a lot of people. I get an opportunity to work with a lot of people, and in the process of that, I really see how being aligned with the essence of what you want to create in your life and being ready and wanting to do that work and step on that path and take that action is all the difference it makes, because we can want it in theory. And I also get the opportunity to talk to people in consultations, and some people who I never work with, I never end up working with, because I know on some level they're not ready. There'll be obstacles that are in their way. And sometimes it's money. Many times it's money. And believe it or not, money is also one of the obstacles that become actually a fear. Because money is such a common thing for people to say, I don't have the money. And believe me, I get it. I know what it's like not to have the money to do something. And at the same time, that's how the fear is showing up. That's one of the roadblocks. And people will say, well, there's no way I can do this because I don't have the money. So if I don't have the money, I can't. And then it goes in that kind of vicious, kind of crazy cycle. But sometimes we have to be willing to say yes and do something totally outrageous to make it happen. And so I'm going to tell you one of my stories of my outrageous action. And it happened a little over, I'm going to say, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I won a free ticket to go to an event. At the time I was living in Sacramento, California, and it was a free event in San Jose, California. And in this free event, it was actually a 3-day long conference on coaching, on how to create a coaching business. Now, I've created a business. I had a very successful business with my hair business for years, but this was something totally different, a totally different type of market. So I went to this conference, and one of the things, of course, that came up in the conference was there was a lot of great content. I made a lot of great contacts with people, but what was the purpose of them putting this conference on is to get you to sign up for their program. And I do have to admit, I am not one who easily buys stuff like this. I'm just not easily sold to. But this particular conference, when it began, I knew that what I was seeing on the stage was my ticket. It was my ticket to moving out of the place that I was in, from doing hair in the capacity that I was, to completely not doing it all. And that's what I wanted. And so at the end of this 3-day conference, they offered their program, their year-long program, to us for a total of something like, I don't even remember the amount now, but it was something like $13,000. And I was like, oh, well, that ain't going to happen. There's just no way that's going to happen. But here was the thing. My vision that I had for my life and the work that I knew that I was called here to do was big. And although my challenges were bigger, in that moment, at that conference, on that weekend, that 3-day weekend, I made my vision bigger than my challenges. And I said yes. And I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. I knew I wasn't going to borrow the money. I knew that I was not going to put it on a credit card. I knew that I had to pay for this cash every month, make a payment. So, my payments were something over $1,000 every single month. And I did not make this decision lightly. I made this decision with actual fear and excitement at the same time. The fear of how in the hell am I going to get this to work, and the excitement that I knew this was going to change my life. I knew this was the exact thing that I needed, and this is what the choice that I knew that I must make, and I did. And when I went to sign up for this program, the woman took me back, and I started to cry, and she told me to take a deep breath and asked me, what's the emotion about? And I said, because I know my life's going to change. I know that making this choice is going to change the way in which the trajectory of my life is going to go, and that this is a step in the direction that I want my life to go. And what I was willing to give up was the fear of the money. What I was willing to give up is the potential of failure. And what I was willing to give up was the judgment that maybe that I could have got, or that I was having about myself, about making a choice when I didn't even know how I was going to make it happen. And the outcome of that story has been, here I am doing this work, and that every single month, with everything I learned in that program, I was able to create enough revenue for myself to pay for it every single month for a whole entire year. And I actually went on to do a whole nother year of that right after that. So it's that choice that we make, that we make our vision greater than the challenges that are in front of us. Even if we don't even think we can find a way, we just say yes. Because when we have said yes, when we come from our body in that sacred yes, the alignment of that, life will configure to support it. Because life will then be able to match the energy. As long as you're not doing it, life has nothing to match it other than the lack of action. Then life also shows us the lack of action. Like, things will not be put into place for us to support us because we're not putting things into place to support us. So the card, I pulled a card at the beginning of this conversation that I'm having with you, and the card that I pulled was from Ganesha. He's one of my favorite deities. I love him. Something about him, he's just so powerful and cute and just speaks to me. And so the card that I pulled is courage. And courage is what is necessary in the hero's journey of life. Courage is the tenacity, it's the resiliency, it's the ability for us to continue to get up and say yes and to face as a warrior whatever is in front of us. And that's what a warrior is. A warrior is one who is willing to face what is in front of them and say yes. So my hope is that this was of some help for you, and that it can bring you some insight, some clarity, some peace, some calm in your life, in wherever you happen to be. Namaste.